Welcome back to Crime Matrix. It was just another morning in the McCarty household. Jessica, a 33-year-old stay-at-home mom, woke up early to get her two children, 7-year-old Lacey and 6-year-old Philip, ready for school. She made them a quick breakfast before ushering them out the door to wait for the bus. Jessica treasured her mornings with the kids. They were her world. Jessica hadn't always lived such an idyllic life. She came from a troubled background marred by substance abuse issues, but now she had turned her life around, focusing all her energy on raising her children in a happy, stable home. At least, that's how it seemed from the outside. In reality, Jessica struggled with postpartum depression and other mental health problems. She did her best to hide it from her boyfriend, Christopher, and everyone else. Christopher provided a steady job as a quality assurance manager to support the family financially, while Jessica tended to the children. After seeing the kids off to school, Jessica decided to pay her mother a visit. They chatted over tea, nothing of consequence. To her mother, Jessica seemed a little sad, but nothing out of the ordinary. If only she had probed a little deeper. Later that day, while waiting for the children to return home, Jessica sat pensively in the recliner. She took out a notebook and began scribbling away on the pages, pouring out her innermost thoughts and feelings. Her mother noticed but didn't pry. She had no idea that the words flowing from Jessica's pen spelled impending doom. When the kids arrived home, Jessica instructed them to go play in their rooms. She needed time to think. Alone with her darkening thoughts, Jessica picked up her cell phone and called Christopher at work. When he answered, she blurted out, "The kids are dead." Then the line went dead. Christopher froze, paralyzed by those 4 horrific words. After what seemed an eternity, he snapped back to his senses and rushed out of the office. He had to get to the house right away. As he sped down the roads, the possibilities swirled in his mind. What could Jessica have meant? Were the kids really dead? Had there been an accident? None of the scenarios made any sense. He pushed the pedal to the floor, urgency propelling him forward. Screeching into the driveway, Christopher leapt from the car and ran to the front door. It was unlocked. He burst inside to a scene of unimaginable carnage. Blood was splattered everywhere, on the walls, the floor, even the ceiling. It was a slaughterhouse. Jessica stood wielding a large butcher knife, her clothes drenched in blood. At her feet lay the lifeless bodies of the children, their bodies ripped and slashed beyond recognition. Philip's blonde hair was matted with blood. Lacey's tiny hand clutched her favorite doll, now stained crimson. Christopher cried out in anguish at the sight of his brutally murdered children. He charged at Jessica, knocking the knife from her hands. She offered no resistance as he shoved her aside and scooped up the remaining living child, their infant son, Christopher Jr. Clutching the baby to his chest, he fled outside and sped off in his truck. In the rearview mirror, he could see Jessica stumbling about in the front yard, still clutching that awful blood-stained knife. At the hospital, doctors desperately tried to save baby Christopher, but it was too late. The damage was too severe. The 2 older children were already gone. In one devastating moment, Jessica had destroyed her entire family. As police descended on the scene, they coaxed Jessica to surrender her weapon. She willingly gave it up and submitted to arrest without a fight. Her eerie detachment unsettled the officers. It was as if she barely comprehended the magnitude of her actions. Investigators entered the house to find carnage beyond anything they'd encountered before. It was evident that the children had been stabbed repeatedly with vicious force. Baby Christopher's crib was soaked with blood. Shards of broken glass surrounded the bathtub. Dark crimson footprints tracked across the floors. And the smell. The metallic stench of fresh blood hung heavy in the air. On the dashboard of Jessica's minivan, the police discovered a handwritten note. The letter contained Jessica's chilling confession. She had intentionally murdered her 3 children. Her words revealed a disturbed mind, overflowing with anguish, jealousy, and despair. As investigators assembled the pieces, a portrait of tragedy emerged. Jessica was a troubled soul who had hidden her instability under a cloak of normalcy. Her relationship with Christopher was crumbling. Her emotional state was deteriorating. The letter indicated she saw no way out except through violence. So in her twisted mind, she ended her children's lives, believing death to be better than a life with a broken family. The community recoiled in horror at the news of Jessica's unfathomable crime. How could a mother turn so violently on her own innocent children? What evil existed inside her to drive her to commit such ruthless slaughter? The case propelled forward quickly. Jessica openly confessed, never denying her actions. After pleading guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder, she received a sentence of life in prison without parole. As Jessica settled into her new life behind bars, investigators dug deeper into her past. They spoke with family, friends, and doctors, gradually piecing together a portrait of a troubled woman who had long battled inner demons. Signs of Jessica's instability emerged, hidden beneath the facade of her cheerful motherhood. Her own mother shared troubling details from Jessica's childhood, marred by substance abuse, a habit that continued even after having children. Jessica's ex-husband recalled her confiding frightening thoughts of harming their children when postpartum depression gripped her mind after the birth of each child. Her brother described heated arguments between them related to childhood wounds and family dysfunction. Jessica's mental health history included diagnoses of bipolar disorder, PTSD, anxiety, depression, and borderline personality disorder. She lacked healthy coping skills to manage her crumbling relationship with Christopher. In her therapist's notes, disturbing revelations came to light, implying Jessica had expressed thoughts of violence well before that day. Troubling patterns merged, painting a portrait of a woman susceptible to psychological breakdown under stressful circumstances. Clearly, Jessica was a disturbed woman in need of mental health treatment, not a cold-blooded killer. But the justice system showed her little mercy. Her illness went largely ignored as she was condemned for her actions. The question persisted: what drove this loving mother to suddenly commit such an inconceivable act of violence against her children? How could a woman celebrated for her warmth and devotion as a parent harbor such darkness inside? Investigators felt certain Christopher held the missing pieces. It was time to hear his side of the story. In our next video in this true crime series, we will continue examining the tragic McCarty family murders. We'll hear from Jessica's boyfriend and the father of her youngest victim, Christopher, as police probe deeper to uncover what went wrong behind the closed doors of this seemingly normal household. New troubling details will emerge about family dysfunction, mental illness, and a relationship on the rocks. As we search for clues leading up to the grisly crime scene, you'll gain insight into Jessica's deteriorating psyche and descent into instability. What will Christopher reveal? Could anyone have predicted Jessica's deadly breakdown? Stay tuned and subscribe to Crime Matrix as we continue unraveling the McCarty family murders.